away from, hey, we just need power and all the great things that come with power. Now we need clean power, right? And FERC is not really being aggressive on saying we need clean power. But in order for that to happen, people like Tom, they need some additional compensation in the near term, and they need the utilities and other investors to be able to deploy these assets. They're going to cost more than a natural gas power plant on a per kilowatt hour basis, or a reserve, kilowatt basis if it's reserve power. Tom needs to have a marketplace that can actually get deployments of his technology, because his slide was outstanding that until we hit some volume in that technology, the prices are going to be very high. So FERC's got to look at that and go, yeah, this is the same whether you're talking about iPhones and whether you can produce 1 million of them, or if you're only producing 10 iPhones, guess what? They cost $1 million a piece.
With the way you just said, you have to get to the volumes, but you can't get to those volumes until you get to the prices. So Tom, you're in the trenches here. Tell us, right now you're in this large, it's the Modesto Irrigation District project, right? It's a 25 megawatt, 75 megawatt hour battery that's going to supplant a bunch of those natural gas generators.
Yes.
Once you've proven this product and it has a great lifetime and it's reliable and it does what it's supposed to do, who do you sell this product to? I know it seems like a naive question, but does John Eric buy this? Does you sell it to the utility? Do you sell it to the Modesto Irrigation District? Do you set yourself up as a independent storage operator and sell megawatt hours? So who is the customer for this energy storage? I imagine you've had to answer that question at a couple of board meetings, right? Who's the customer?
Once or twice. It's a great question, and it's something that we struggle with. It's about the business model, it's about the customers, it's about the applications, because as you saw, it's a complicated space. So a couple things are clear, and there's a bunch of stuff that will become clear going forward. There are many different types of utilities. There's 3,200 utilities in the U.S., about 30 big ones like PG&E, and a whole bunch of small ones. And they have different drivers. Sometimes large utilities, investor-owned utilities, are trying to maximize shareholder value. So they have perverse incentives like just building stuff that may not include storage. Other ones, like munis, have different shareholders and different values, and they may be more readily adopted. MID, Modesto Irrigation District, is a muni, and we think there's better traction with munis than the large ones. We also think that wind farms and solar farms can, with appropriately priced storage, storage can add tremendous value. Wind farms are being curtailed today. So if you're T. Boone Pickens, you could buy some storage batteries if they exist at the right price, and your wind farms would be curtailed.
So that was the fourth potential customer. It's the solar farm or the wind farm, right?
Yeah.
And now Maurice Gunderson of CMEA has said that you can triple the value of that wind power. Is that? Do you have a number on what that might be worth? If you have to spend a lot dollars per watt. So have you looked at those kind of numbers? What does that value? How does that improve? Instead of selling intermittent wind at 6 cents per kilowatt hour, are you now selling mittent wind at 18 cents per kilowatt hour?
We haven't done that exact math, but certainly curtailment is increased, right? Last year, there was 27 terawatt hours of curtailment in the U.S., wind farm curtailment, right? Which is, 3/4 of a billion gallons of gasoline, some outrageous number, right? So it's a big, big number. And storage can help that if it's appropriately priced, right? And you got to believe that over time, some of these economics are going to work out. I mean, we're early in this game, right? This is the first or second inning of this deal. And you need projects like SustainX and like some of these other companies like Primus. There's a whole bunch of startups that are doing this. You need to get real data points and find out what works, whether it breaks, how much it really costs, what are the problems. And then some of the policies will start taking care of themselves, and some of the smarter guys who are all economically driven will start to pick up on it. But it's early, but it's coming, right? It won't be a couple more years, and you'll hear a whole lot more about this.
I want to stay with you. Go ahead, please.
So I was just going to make one observation. You mentioned the list of companies which were profitable. And I could have presented the same slide about internet like 10, 15 years ago. Actually, that slide would have looked exactly the same. But that hasn't really prevented the growth in internet or growth in work. And today, I mean, LinkedIn, I mean, it's not profitable. So that profitability has very little to do with what succeeds. But the main point that I'm
but flow batteries have been around for 30 years.
Right,
fuel cells have been around for 150 years, and I can give you a similar list of fuel cell companies.
So the point though, the key difference why internet happened and why a lot of this innovation happens is that consumers are motivated and pull it. And right now, the way our regulatory structure is, there is no pull from the consumers actually. I mean, they don't care whether you load shift or not load shift, they pay the same prices. So I think that pull needs to be created in the market. And that's really, I mean, it's a risk. What is happening today is that non-smokers are basically subsidizing smokers in a way, I mean, in the sense that everybody is paying the same prices. So even if I have some flexibility in my consumption, I can't really take advantage of that because my rates are not dependent on that. And so some of that pull needs to come from consumers.
Kevin, I want to ask you a question. You're making decisions on who to fund, and you have this regulatory risk, right? It's this looming uncertainty out there. Is that sort of, do you just whistle past that risk and say, okay, we're going to get rid of the technological risk, and then we'll figure out what the business case is and hope that regulatory pass is going to be there for us to catch it? I mean, how do you deal with when these entrepreneurs come to you?
So I think the regulatory risk is real, and the way that we think about problems is it's really a channel to market strategy and a market entry strategy. And if someone came to us and they said, you know, here's my idea, it works at a minimum scale of 20 megawatts, you know, we'd say thanks, but no thanks, that's not for us. That first step, that first customer is just too great. But if you look at some of these things, and flow batteries would work in this case as well, you know, if your minimum increment is 250 kilowatts or 1 megawatt, you know, there are customers and there are buyers who are not subject to regulatory frameworks to make that economical. So I could think of lots of, you know, off-grid irrigation systems in California that people are, you know, using diesel to run pumps, and they've got solar installed, and you could actually improve the paybacks in solar and things like this with some distributed renewables. The behind-the-meter commercial industrial, where you have a user of power, Intel, Google, whoever, they don't want to pay peak demand charges. They would be a buyer who just balance sheet funds.
Or the 400 million off-grid consumers in India,
right? Exactly. Islands, these types of things. So we look for strategies in markets, and there are enough of them that you can say, okay, I could see this thing being deployed in those types of markets for a few years before the utility actually says, okay, the risk is at a point where I can get Citibank to bankroll these, or will bankroll them, you know, in the normal kind of project finance structures that exist.
Let's just talk a little bit about technology. Tom, obviously the energy storage technology of the future is zinc-plated flow batteries, right? I mean, that's clearly
one of them. There'll be a lot of winners.
Ben, you said that lithium-ion, by virtue of the scale of that industry, is a likely candidate for one of the winners in this field.
So, I think first it's important to look at time frame. So, as I mentioned in my 6 minutes, EPRI is focusing on getting grid-ready solutions in the short term. And when we say short term, we mean 2050, 5 years. And so what we're kind of playing with in the 5-year frame are technologies that have a commercial track record and have scale to reach something approaching cost effectiveness in that time frame. And so we're pretty much limited to NAS batteries, sodium sulfur batteries, compressed air, lead acid, and those are pretty mature technologies. But in terms of sodium sulfur, there's like one big supplier. There aren't other markets that are driving volume. Lead acid's been around for a long time. It's pretty stable. People know what to expect. It doesn't really usually last long enough for the utility applications. Compressed air has, it's not at scale in terms of the number of technologies or of deployments. There's 2 big ones out there, but most of the parts are commercial. You know, they're easy to get compressors.
So if we have to make the point that the compressed air energy storage is limited to 2 sites in the world, right? That 300 or 400 megawatts is the McIntosh plant in Alabama and somewhere in Germany, right? And so that's it. There's an Iowa project being worked on in Canada with wind. So it looks a lot like a natural gas.
Yeah, right. The components are in scale, and you know it's not trivial, but it's foreseeable that we'll be able to do this at smaller scale. So that lithium-ion.
Sorry. I'm
finished. Or
go ahead.
Lithium-ion has portable electronics and now electric transportation. There are tons of companies working in it. It has, you know, a growing track record and understanding of the technology. We recently issued an RFI for a demonstration that we're going to start in 2012, and we got tons of responses back from the credible.
And you sketched out a sort of a standard of looking like a 1 megawatt hour or one.
Yeah, this is a containerized 1 megawatt, 2-hour
transportable,
somewhat transportable system that could be sited at a substation.
All right, so let's stick with technology. Kevin, in 5 years, the storage technology will be, this is a lightning round, it will be what, and in 10 years it will be what?
So I think the most important thing is something that lithium-ion doesn't address, which is, for a lot of applications, you want to decouple power from energy. I'll come back to this. So with lithium-ion and some of these really electrochemical approaches, you're locked into a certain amount of capacity for a certain amount of energy. And so certain approaches like compressed air or flow batteries, which decouple, you can have 10 megawatt hours with however many megawatts you want, and these are different independent blocks. I think that's probably what the future brings.
And certainly flow batteries have that.
Yeah, they do, and there's a number of different chemistries there, some more toxic than others, the different advantages, etc. And then with compressed air, I think the things that you have seen have been these big in-the-ground, salt cavern things. They often require natural gas to actually get them to run because they run on a cycle which requires that. So some of the newer approaches, SustainX, light cell general compression, working on isothermal approaches which don't require that external power source, and I think that you'll see those.
Does anyone want to volunteer technology predictions? John Eric, you're working on, you have a couple of pilot projects right now, right?
Yeah, those are sodium sulfur. The reason they're sodium sulfur is because we weren't looking to test the technology, we were looking to test the application. Right? And it's been outlined, there are only so many that are really ready.
Okay.
Answer to your question, I think that EPRI has a very good point that the scalability of energy storage can have a lot to do with EVs. That's an opinion. But I think there's some definite connection there. So whatever battery technology ends up with the transportation sector is going to have a leg up on some forces to drive down costs. But again, the real issue is the regulatory, the rules. The technology, I have confidence that folks in this valley and the folks in this room can solve the technical problems if there's the money behind it, if there's the drivers. If there's a way to fund, someone walks in and they have an idea and there's a market out there that can reimburse them for it, then they've got some spikes in their shoes. So.
Craig, you have a feel for a technology that hasn't been mentioned, or something, big holes in the ground, raising big rocks?
One thing that came clear here from the responses so far is that there's really a difference between mobile storage for electric vehicle market, and I think that lithium-ion obviously has the lead in that, and I think that within 5 years we'll probably start seeing the superconductor or supercapacitor technologies come on stream. Some ceramic technologies that are out there. It's really in material science R&D phase right now, but I think that we're going to see some solutions that we just haven't thought of yet. And I think we'll start to see those hit the market in about 5 years. They will certainly be for the mobile market and maybe scalable up to the utility scale. I think on the utility scale, I'm a believer in the early companies that are getting deployments on the ground. So I'm gonna go with Primus' solution because they've got a real solution that's going to hit the ground at scale. You said 25 megawatts, right? And they've got DOE support for it. It sounds like DOE is supporting that. That is a huge advantage that puts Primus way ahead of other competitors in this market space.
DOE, ARPA-E, CEC, and they got money all over the place. Okay.
Except Kevin's.
And by the way, I just say that also the market savviness that Tom talked about and shared with us, he's going after the munis, the municipal utilities. That is where the market play is for companies like Primus right now. It's going to be very hard to get the investor-owned utilities to kind of move their aircraft carrier and point in a different direction. The munis are much more versatile; they'll move faster. So I really like that. And they're taking off a peaker plant, right? They're valuing off of a natural gas peaker. I think beautiful business model. I love it.
Josh?
Yes. So I actually gonna. I know sometimes these panels can get. We have great panelists, and I think it's quite. I personally find it quite interesting because I'm interested in energy storage. But I know they can get quite stale. So I'll say something maybe a bit controversial, but also happens to be something I believe. So my opinion is the winners in the next 5 to 10 years will actually not be storage device companies. They will be software and power electronics companies. And why is that? I believe what you're going to see in this market, I think what you're already seeing, part of the reason why there's no profitability around that is it's really hard, unless you have a truly differentiated technology, it's really hard to drive margins in this industry. And then even with the regulatory solution, you can look at it as, sure, the market gets bigger, but if you're a provider, if you're a vendor, can you really drive margins to utilities?
So software and electronics around energy storage?
Yeah, and so this gets back, I know, apologies, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'll give you an example of a company that's just starting to chip away at it a little bit. It's had a good bit of success. Extreme. Sorry. But Extreme. Extreme is a company based out of basically Austin, Texas, right outside of Austin, Texas. And they make what they call a dry cell battery. Sort of akin to an advanced lead acid, though they'd probably chop my head off if I said that. So don't tell that to the folks back in Texas. But I think, if you really kind of put a truth serum in the executives in that company and ask them, is your battery significantly better than another battery? They'll probably say no. But what is their sort of key differentiator? Why have they been one of the few storage companies to scale? Because they offer power electronics.
So they wrap some intelligence around a regular battery, right?
Look, you can't just put a battery on the grid and with a grid connection expect it to work. You have to connect it to the grid. That takes power electronics. But again, it gets back to what I was saying was, not only do you have to have the power electronics to help sort of interoperate the battery with the grid, but you also have to know what to do with it, right? Because you can use these storage devices in a number of different ways. So how do you know, again, what's the most valuable application? Sure, you need the power electronics piece, but you need the software, you need the intelligence to know at any point in time what is the most valuable application.
So I think that really addresses something I said initially, is that you can't have startups designing products in a vacuum. They have to function in the grid as a good grid citizen, and that might be something that Extreme, I think, is doing and actually deploying megawatt hours in Hawaii, in Austin at the Tres Amigas location as well, and they seem to be gaining some traction.
Huge one with Duke Energy, no
Duke
trees,
Energy as well.
many megawatts of around.
All right, so I think we answered some of the questions we set out, or we gave a shot at answering some of the questions we set out to do. We'll